Today, in Part 2 of Chapter 61 of the Yoga Vasistha, we will discuss in detail topics such as the order of perception and other sensory perceptions. Today, our path is clear and sequential. We're going to cover, first, the order of perception, then translating the original Sanskrit, the spiritual and philosophical meaning, mapping Brahman and Maya, Linga Deha and Tanmatras, and finally, the ultimate spiritual significance of all of this.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1. The order of perception.
So, we're drawing our foundational scriptural authority for today's explainer directly from the Gita Press Gorakhpur text. Specifically, we're looking at Sarg-61, passages 72-34 and 73. Now remember, this isn't just poetry or some vague metaphor we're dealing with. It's a highly technical, incredibly precise manual detailing the exact order of sensory perception. The whole intention of these verses is to give us a rigorous roadmap of exactly how consciousness fragments itself into the sensory data you and I experience every day.
Moving on to Section 2, Translating the Original Sanskrit. What we have here is the IST transliteration of those original Sanskrit verses for Sarg-61, passages 72-34 and 73. The actual cadence and structure of these original syllables hold the deep, vibrational truth of how perception actually unfolds. If you look at the original text, this progression from the unmanifest to the manifest, it's laid out with absolute mathematical precision, literally word by word.
Let's really ground this by looking at the literal, word-for-word English translation. These are the specific terms detailing sensory perception from those passages. And we're avoiding any modern analogies here because we absolutely want to maintain strict textual integrity. The text clearly describes how pure awareness first localizes, right? Then it gives rise to these subtle sense potentials, and only finally does it manifest as the gross organs of perception. The words themselves prove something absolutely crucial. Perception is an inside-out process, not outside-in.
This brings us to Section 3, Spiritual and Philosophical Meaning. So, here's a question for you. How do the senses bind infinite consciousness into the finite experience of the physical world? Seriously, I want you to actively think about this for a second. At your core, you are infinite consciousness. Yet, right now, you experience yourself as a limited body sitting in a limited room. So how exactly does this grand illusion happen? Well, the answer lies in the specific mechanism of sensory perception we're diving into today.
The answer is actually found in the precise sequential emergence of sensory perception from pure consciousness. The verses from Canto 61 break down the logic step by step. First, consciousness essentially forgets its infinite nature. From that localized forgetfulness, a subtle desire pops up. That desire then creates a subtle sense, like the potential for sight or the potential for sound. It's only after all of that happens that the physical eye or physical ear manifests to actually fulfill that subtle desire. This sequence is absolute and it perfectly bridges the gap between pure abstract philosophy and the heavy, tangible reality you're feeling right now. Let's step back and look at Section 4, Mapping Brahman and Maya.
All right, let's take a look at the macro view here. On one side, we have Brahman, the ultimate reality. It's unchanging, infinite, and eternally silent. On the other side, we have Maya, the illusion. Maya is basically what overlays this illusion of a sensory sequence right onto the unchanging canvas of Brahman. Maya acts as the active principle that takes the singular, formless Brahman and projects out this entire multiplicity of the universe. So the order of perception we're studying, that's literally just Maya's toolbox in action.
Which brings us to Section 5, Linga Deha and Tanmatras.
First up, we have the Linga Deha. This is your subtle body. It's what carries the mind, the intellect, the ego, and those subtle senses across lifetimes. Your physical body is really just a temporary shell, but the Linga Deha, that is the actual engine for your perception. It's this invisible apparatus that's processing reality before you ever consciously register a sight or hear a sound. Next, we have the 10 mantras. These are the 5 subtle elements: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. They are at the very root of physical experience. You see, the Tanmatras are completely intrinsically linked to the Linga Deha. Think about it. Before there is a physical object to actually touch, there has to be the subtle principle of touchability itself. The Linga Deha uses these Tanmatras as fundamental building blocks to construct what we mistakenly believe is this totally solid external sensory reality.
Okay, let's pull this all together into the precise sequence originally taught in Canto 61. Step 1, Maya veils the absolute reality of Brahman. Step 2, From this veiling, the tanmatras, those subtle potentials we just talked about, emerge. Step 3, your individual linga deha processes these tanmatras through your mind and ego. And finally, step 4, the gross physical sensory perception actually manifests. This step-by-step manifestation is huge because it proves that what you're seeing and hearing right at this very moment is the end result of a complex internal process, not the beginning of one.
And finally, Section 6, Final Spiritual Significance.
So, what does this all mean for us? The core teachings of Canto 61, Principle 2, leave us with 3 vital takeaways for life. First, detachment from sensory illusion. When you truly get that your senses are projecting reality rather than just passively receiving it, you stop being a victim to your own desires and aversions. It's a real game changer. Second, transcending the linga deha. By realizing that your mind and ego are just subtle machinery, you can take a step back and observe them without being completely controlled by them. Ultimately, understanding this very order of perception is the exact key to peeling back the layers of Maya and realizing your true nature as the infinite Brahman. If you reverse the order of perception in meditation, you travel right back to the source.
On behalf of the Vedmata AI family, it is our humble request that if you found our presentation informative, please share our video as widely as possible so that the authentic knowledge of Indian Vedic texts can reach the masses. Come, let us all participate in this yagya of knowledge. Har Har Mahadev.